Oh, by the way, after I read the first book, I did give each book of the Brony Adventures a title. Like the Brony Adventures 2 book title was 7 Ways to Hell, because it put 7 showing up. The Brony Adventures 3 is called The Light Goes Out. And that will be explained of why it's titled that in book 3. So, let's get started. The Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 1, The Dark Awakens. In the castle, after days of what happened, Dr. Swarm says, what happened? Project 7! Where am I? This is the castle throne room. It's in ruins. Aunt Celestia! Dr. flies to Celestia and says, Celestia. Tears fall from Dr. Swarm's eyes. Dr. Swarm says, No! Mother! Mother! Dr. flies to Luna. Dr. Swarm says, Mother! No! The storm roars. Applejack says, Twilight, look. Twilight says, There's a storm over the castle. Applejack smiles and says, He's back. Tears fall from her eyes, and she says, He's finally back. Dinosaur says, Ah! His eyes glow red, and his armor appears, and he starts shaking. Dinosaur says, You will be avenged, Mother. So will you, Aunt Celestia. Dinosaur flies out of the castle and screams, Project 7! The storm roars. Twilight says, It's really him. Tears fall from her eyes, and she says, It's finally gonna be over. Applejack says, Whoa, looks like all of Equestria is shaking. Twilight says, Equestria is dead. Dinosaur screams, Ah! The ground starts to split. Applejack says, This is crazy! It's like a major earthquake! Twilight says, He's hurting. The storm roars even louder. Dinosaur screams, Ah! The castle falls. Applejack says, Whoa. Twilight puts her head down and says, You must have seen Princess Luna and Princess Celestia. Dinosaur screams, Ah! The storm roars even louder. Dinosaur stops screaming, tears falling from his eyes. He lands in Kinderlot and says, Mother! Aunt Celestia! Tears fall from Applejack's eyes, and she says, Thunderstorm. Tears fall from Twilight's eyes, and she says, My heart is breaking. I can't take it. He's in so much pain. Thunderstorm falls to his knees crying and says, Mother, Celestia, I'm so sorry. Around Thunderstorm is the ashes and bones that was once Kinderlot. Pinkie Pie says, It's not your fault. Please stop crying. Pie Pie says, Pinkie, stay back. He needs to be alone right now. Pinkie Pie says, But he's so sad, and he's hurting so much. Pie Pie says, He needs to be alone right now. Trust me, he's not ready yet. Come on. Pinkie Pie says, Okay. Pie Pie and Piggy turn around to see Project 7 standing a few feet away from them. Pinkie Pie says, Oh no. Pie Pie says, Project 7. Thunderstorm screams, Project 7! He flies over to Project 7 and says, Your reign of terror ends. Mother, Aunt Celestia, and all these lives you've taken will be avenged! Project 7 punches at Thunderstorm, but he dodges it and says, Not so easy when I'm looking, is it? He punches Project 7 into a house in Ponyville. He flies to the house and then walks in. Too gory to describe. Thunderstorm walks out of the house. He falls to his knees and starts crying. Twilight says, "He needs us." Applejack says, "No, he needs them." Rainbow Dash, Scootaloo, and Rain land in Ponyville and run into Thunderstorm. End of Chapter 1. The Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 2, Help Goes a Long Way. Rainbow Dash says, "Thunderstorm, you're back." Thunderstorm stands up and says, "Get back." Rainbow Dash says, "Huh?" Thunderstorm says, "Get back. Now." Scootaloo says, "Mom, get back." Rainbow Dash backs up. Thunderstorm faces the house behind him. Project 7 bursts out and punches at Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm dodges it and grabs Project 7's back right leg and swings it into the ground. Thunderstorm says, "Freaking demon! How are you alive?" Project 7 says, "I learned, fool." She trips Thunderstorm, then punches him into a far mountain. Project 7 flies to Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm says, she punches into the mountain where his head was. Thunderstorm says, "Miss. My turn." He hits her into the ground in the middle of Ponyville. Project 7 stands up and flies back to Thunderstorm. Their battle begins. Twilight says, "He needs help. They're evenly matched." Rainbow Dash says, "He won't accept help. It makes him feel weak. It makes him feel too weak to protect the ones he loves." Applejack says, Well, that's just silly. A sudden help don't make him weak. It makes him stronger." Thunder says, "He needs my help." Ah! Twilight says, "You're too hurt to help." Thunder says, "I caused this. I need help undo it." Dave says, I'll help too." Dee says, "Me too." Thunder says, "We're his friends. He needs to learn to accept our help." The battle lasts for a year till finally Thunderstorm is sent into the middle of Ponyville. Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo scream, "Thunderstorm!" Thunderstorm says, "Ah! Dang demon! She just won't fall." Thunder says, You need our help." Thunderstorm says, "Hunter, you made her, didn't you?" Hunter drops his head and says, "Yes." Thunderstorm says, "You'd be three houses right now if I hadn't already screamed my lungs out earlier." Hunter says, "I'm sorry. So sorry. I just wanted to make androids help us with the winter wrap-up. It would have been done so much faster and easier." Thunderstorm says, "I accept no pointless help, especially the one that killed my mother." Rainbow Dash says, "He's just angry and hurt. He doesn't mean it." Hunter says, "I basically did. I built her." David, JT, go help him. I'll stay here. Twilight says, "No, you go too." Applejack says, "You need to mend this gap between y'all." Hunter says, "Let's fly." JT says, "I'm not a Pegasus." Hunter says, Then do something from down here. Let's go, David." Dave says, "Right." Thunderstorm says, "Die!" He punches Project 7 into a far mountain. Thunderstorm breathes. Dave says, "Let us help." Thunderstorm says, "Us?" Hunter says, "Please, let me help." Thunderstorm says, "You need to get away from me. Now!" Thunderstorm flies to Project 7. Dave says, "Oh no you don't." Hunter says, "I'm not leaving." Thunderstorm says, "David, leave!" Dave says, "I'm gonna help." Thunderstorm says, "How?" Dave says, "You're not the only pony who can fight." Hunter says, It learns as it fights." Thunderstorm says, "This is your final warning. Get away from me!" They reach Project 7. Project 7 bursts out of the mountain, and then their battle starts. Project 7 throws David into a house and Hunter into the mountain. Thunderstorm says, "Don't touch them! JT, now!" JT fires a laser of magic through Project 7's head. Project 7 says, "Error, error, error." Hunter punches through Project 7's back and stomach. Thunderstorm says, "I'm going to make sure you're gone." He grabs Project 7 and turns her into stone, then buries her. Cheryl asks, "Is it gone?" Dave says, "Yeah, it's gone." Ah! Cheryl says, "Daddy." Dave says, I'm alright, honey." Shirley says, "You better be." Dave says, "I am." Aqua hugs Thunderstorm and says, "Thank you, Uncle Thunderstorm." Thunderstorm says, "If you're going to thank me, then you also got to thank them." Aqua says, "Okay." Aqua hugs Hunter, David, and JT. Hunter says, "Thunderstorm?" Thunderstorm says, "You built it, but you also helped destroy it. It'll take me longer, but I can do this. Thank you." Hunter says, "You're welcome. I'm so sorry." Thunderstorm says, "I know." Thunderstorm walks over to his family. And Dash says, "Can you forgive him?" Thunderstorm says, "I will, in time." Skilly kisses Thunderstorm and says, "Welcome back, Dad." Rain hugs Thunderstorm and says, "Daddy!" And Dash smiles, then kisses Thunderstorm for a long time. Thunderstorm says, "I missed you too." Tears appear in Rainbow Dash's eyes. She nods her head. Twilight asks, "Where are we going to live?" Equestria is nothing but ashes, ruins, and bones. The kids can't live on a graveyard. Thunderstorm says, we find somewhere else to live. Let's get started." End of Chapter 2. The Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 3, A Broken Spirit. Rudy asks, where do we even begin to look for a new home? Thunderstorm says, "Anywhere that doesn't lead to Dark Pony territory." Fluttershy says, "All my animals are dead." Thunderstorm wraps a wing around Fluttershy and puts his head against hers and says, "I'm so sorry." Tears fall out of Fluttershy's eyes. Zebra says, at least we still got Aqua, our daughter, and each other." Thunderstorm says, "Yeah, Princess Fluttershy. My sister now. You got Zapper, me, Rainbow Dash, Skidaloo, Rain, Aqua, and Skokora. We're your family. We are not going to let you go through this alone." Fluttershy drops to her knees crying and says, "Angel Bunny." Thunderstorm and Zapper drop to their knees. Thunderstorm wraps his wing back around her and says, "I know it hurts. I lost Aunt Celestia," and tears fall out of Thunderstorm's eyes. And he says, "And Mother." Fluttershy looks at Thunderstorm and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't think about." Thunderstorm says, "It's alright. Don't apologize. I'm sorry. I meant to help comfort you, not lose it." Fluttershy says, "Don't apologize. It's not been nowhere near long enough for you to be just fine." Thunderstorm says, "Yes, it has. It has to be. I got a family to look after and my other survivors. With them gone, I'm in charge now. I can't afford to lose it." Fluttershy says, You can't keep it bottled inside." Thunderstorm says, "Watch me." He walks over to Twilight and asks, "Any other survivors besides who's already with us. Twilight says, I think that the hooves is alive, but by the looks of it, he left days ago. Thunderstorm says, so this is all that's left. 19 ponies. Let's move out. Twilight says, goodbye, Equestria. Tears fall from Twilight's eyes, and she says, goodbye, Princess Celestia. A week later, Rudy asks, can we rest? Thunderstorm says, sure. Rabbi says, it's been a week, and we have found nothing. Thunderstorm says, we will. I know it. Tozer says, I agree. We're bound to find something. Rabbi says, yeah, I bet so. Applejack says, don't worry, partner. The princesses are looking out for us. Thunderstorm smiles and says, yeah, they are. Rabbi says, how can a pony that's so beautiful and tough be so optimistic? Jack blushes and says, y'all think I'm beautiful? Rabbi says, ever since I first met you. Jack smiles and says, you're not so bad yourself, partner. Rabbi says, please, call me Fire. Jack blushes even redder and says, oh, okay. Rabbi moves in towards Applejack. Lightning pals and crackles between them. Applejack says, whoa! Rabbi says, whoa! Not cool, man! Thunderstorm says, we don't have time for you two to get all lovey-dovey. We got a home to find. Do it on your own time. He walks off. Rabbi says, grumpy. Remember says, he's hurting. Badly. Seeing you two having such a great time considering what's happened makes him angry. Rabbi says, I didn't even think. I'll go apologize. Schooler says, don't. He's most likely to punch you. Rabbi says, I can take a hit. I can take a hit, kid. Schooler says, 3-4 trees. Rabbi says, oh, I'll sit down. Schooler says, thought so. Twilight says, where's Pinky and Apploom and Sweetie Belle? Rabbi says, oh no. In some forest at a cliff, Thunderstorm says, I shouldn't have said that. I'm just so... Apploom puts her hoof on Thunderstorm's leg and says, hurt? Thunderstorm says, yeah. Suba says, we all lost some pony, but the important thing is we're all still alive to tell their stories. Levi says, yep, they'll never be forgotten. Thunderstorm says, I want to be alone. Leave. Sweet Belle says, Thunderstorm? Thunderstorm says, leave! Evelyn says, well, let's go, girls. We're always here, Thunderstorm. Levi says, you're not alone. They walk away. Thunderstorm says, yes, I am. My world's been shattered. Can you please save me? Before I'm gone. Before I'm gone. End of Chapter 3. Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 4, A Dark Aunt's Kindness. Twilight says, Pinky. Any luck? Pinkie looks at the ground and turns her head. Twilight says, oh. Apple says he's too hurt to let any pony in. Thunderstorm says, let's move. Apple and Pinkie Pie, Sweetbelle, and Twilight say, huh? Sweetbelle says, I thought you were... Thunderstorm says, let's move. We've rested long enough. Come on. Twilight says, you heard the pony. Let's move. Every pony gets up and follows Thunderstorm. 1 hour later, Remember Dash says, you okay? Thunderstorm says, fine. Remember Dash says, okay. Twilight says, no you're not. Thunderstorm says, I said I'm fine, so I'm fine. Thunderstorm's eyes glow red and he looks at Twilight. and says, so drop it. Thunderstorm looks forward and his eyes go back to normal. Twilight says, no, you need to. Firefly says, oh no. Anti-Colgate says, huh, hey look, a couple of equestrians and some brats. The storm roars. Anti-Colgate says, huh? A storm? Anti-Shining Armor says, Colgate? Anti-Colgate says, what? Anti-Shining Armor says, that one pony, he's changed. Anti-Colgate says, Dunstan's eyes glow red and his armor has appeared. And he says, brats? Brats! Anti-Colgate says, what the fuck is he? Anti-Shining Armor says, feels like an earthquake. Rain says, Daddy? Thunderstorm says, I'm gonna show you hell. Anti-Colgate screams, stay back! No! Please! Twilight says, that's horrible. Brady says, she faints. Fluttershy says, oh my. Silver says, I see some horrible deaths, but oh Celestia. Dash and Schooly watch, frozen in shock, along with every pony else. Thunderstorm says, "Pugh, heart tastes nasty." Huh? He walks over to Rain and says, Rain, please stop crying. They would have killed you, or worse. Rain, please. Dash says, I'll try to calm her down. Thunderstorm says, okay. He stands up and walks to Twilight and says, Twilight? Hello? He waves a hoof in her face and says, hello? Am I gonna have to smack a mirror? Twilight says, what? Thunderstorm says, just kidding. Help get a pony unshocked and Rarity awake. Twilight says, right. Thunderstorm says, yo! Aqua! Aqua says, Uncle Thunderstorm? Thunderstorm says, hey Angel. Uncle says, what does bug mean? Thunderstorm says, Judy says, I can tell her. Thunderstorm says, I'll kill you. JT says, sorry. Thunderstorm says, it means something very bad. Don't say it again, ever. Okay? Uncle says, okay. Thunderstorm says, that's my angel. Uncle says, Uncle Thunderstorm? Thunderstorm says, yeah. Uncle says, what is hell? Thunderstorm says, crud. It's a place for very bad ponies. Aqua says, oh. JT says, I can show you more worse, Aqua. Thunderstorm says, I warned you. He hits JT through 3 trees. Joe says, wow, you're strong. Aqua says, whoa. Soul says, you just punched my dad through 3 trees. Thunderstorm says, he'll be out for a couple of days, but besides that, he's just fine. Soul says, Dad! Rain says, Dad? Thunderstorm says, yeah, honey? Rain says, can you tell me about Grandma? Thunderstorm says, I got to go. Rain says, Daddy? Schooler says, leave him be. He'll come back. Deep within the forest at under the cliff. Tears fall from Thunderstorm's eyes, and he says, why? A twig snaps. Thunderstorm says, huh? Get away from me. Anti-Celestia says, why? I can be your new aunt. The storm roars. Thunderstorm says, how dare you? Thunderstorm's eyes glow red and his armor appears. Anti-Celestia looks up to Thunderstorm and she nuzzles him and says, I'm so sorry. You Must be in so much pain. Thunderstorm takes a step back and says, "What?" And Tyson just says, "I'm not here to fight. I figured one dark pony needed another for comfort." Thunderstorm says, "What? What?" And Ty switches to rustling around Thunderstorm and says, "Let it out. I'm here, my nephew." Thunderstorm says, "Auntie?" He puts his head into Anti-Switch's side and cries. Anti-Switch says, "I'm here." End of chapter 4. Brony Adventures 3, chapter 5. Words Can Kill. Hours go by, and soon it's night. And Red Ash says, "Where are you, Thunderstorm?" Dave says, I'm looking for him." Rain says, He went that way." Dave says, "Thanks, Rain." Chili says, "Be careful." Joe says, "Dad?" Dave says, I'll be fine." David walks into the forest. Thunderstorm says, Why are you being so nice?" And Tyson says, You're my nephew, no matter how you try to deny it." Thunderstorm says, "I'm Luna's son, not anti-Luna's son." And Tyson says, Some things exist in Dark Pony territory that don't exist in Equestria. One thing is, Dark Star is my brother." Thunderstorm says, What? And Tyson says, It's the truth." Thunderstorm says, "So you really are my aunt?" And Tyson says, "Yes, and I couldn't be happier." Thunderstorm says, "Still, a dark pony is supposed to be evil." And Tyson says, "Then explain yourself." Thunderstorm says, "I'm not full dark pony, only half." And Tyson says, "Still got dark pony in you, yet you're good. No matter where we come from, we choose who we are." Thunderstorm says, I want to scream." And Tyson says, "Then scream." Thunderstorm says, "No. Could Dad's eyes turn red like mine can?" And Tyson says, "Yes, you look like him." Thunderstorm says, "I don't want to." And Tyson says, "Understandable. Can I meet Rain?" Thunderstorm says, How did you? Sure." And Tyson says, "Good. Thank you." Thunderstorm says, "No problem. Don't get me wrong when I say this. You're great, but you're not Aunt Celestia." And Celestia puts her head up against Thunderstorm's and says, I know. I can never replace her. I don't want to. I just want you to know I'm here." Thunderstorm says, "I know, and thank you. Are you really Dad's sister?" And Celestia says, "Yes." Thunderstorm says, "Shame. Your black coat and red mane makes you so beautiful." And Celestia says, "You want to kiss me?" Thunderstorm blushes and says, "Well, I'm married and they're Scootaloo. I don't want to hurt them." And Celestia says, "One kiss won't hurt." She tilts her head. Thunderstorm says, Dave says, "What the heck?" Thunderstorm says, "Whoa." And David? "Why are you here?" Dave says, "Me? Why are you here with her and kissing her?" And Celestia says, he just wanted a kiss. Nothing more. Dave says, "Shut up, Dark Pony scum." Storm roars. Thunderstorm stands up, his eyes glowing red, and his armor has appeared. Thunderstorm says, "I'll give you one chance to take that back." Dave says, "What? No!" Thunderstorm says, "Fine then." He lifts his wings. Celestia says, "Don't. I am a dark pony, after all. What he said is to be expected at first sight." Thunderstorm says, "No, it's not." Dave says, "What's going on? Why are you with a dark pony, especially scum like her?" And Ty says, please, stop saying that. Dave says, shut up, you daughter of a Discord. Thunderstorm says, ah! And Ty says, what power? The tip of the cliff collapses. Thunderstorm says, I'll show you a son of a Discord. The storm roars. Dave says, please, don't. Think of Cheryl and Cheryl. I'm one of your friends. Thunderstorm says, I guess you'll be a widow. He fires at David. Dave says, no! End of chapter 5. The Brony Adventures 3, chapter 6, Lightning. Ah! Shirley screams, David! Cheryl screams, Dad! Thunderstorm says, come on, stop blacking out. Dave says, and Thaisa just says, just like your dad, a bad temper. Thunderstorm says, I got nothing from him. Next time, David, don't insult my aunt. And Thaisa just says, may I meet the others? Thunderstorm says, sure, come on. Dave says, Thunderstorm says, I'll carry you back, David. After that says, they're back. Shirley says, oh, Celestia, you're a bloody mess. What happened? Dave says, I made him angry. Really angry. Thunderstorm says, sorry, dude. Every pony, I would like you to meet my dark aunt, Celestia. Every pony says, what? And Celestia says, hello. Twilight says, hello. Twilight says, what are you doing? That's a dark pony. Thunderstorm says, I know they hurt you, but she's like me. Good. Twilight says, they did worse than hurt me, but fine. I'll give her a chance. Thunderstorm says, thank you. Twilight says, for you? No problem. Rain says, are you good? And Thaisa just smiles and says, hello, Rain. Yes, I'm good. Can I tell you something about your dad? Rain says, sure. And Thaisa says, they used to call him Lightning. He was quick to strike. You couldn't lay a blow on him. He heard you before you heard him. Rain says, what happened? And Thaisa says, it left him. It just disappeared. I think he's still there, but he's afraid to let it out. Rain says, why? And Thaisa just says, I don't know why. I don't know. You should have saw him. How his face just lighted up when some pony tried to hit him, and he had that pony on the ground before you could blink. This happened in Equestria, of course. Rain says, I figured. Popeye says, he was amazing. He saved me from some bullies one time. From then on, we were friends. True friends. He taught me how to fight, but kept his special tricks to himself. When he first saw Project 7 and it punched at him, there was something in his eyes. Lightning was back. He dodged that punch so quickly. If only he stayed. And Thaisa just says, that was his nickname, not his name. Popeye says, I know. And Thaisa just says, now he's hurt and trying to run away from it. Tears appear in Celestia's eyes. And she says, he's killing himself. Popeye says, it ends now. He saved me. Now I save him. Thunderstorm! Thunderstorm says, yeah? Popeye says, I'm one of your best friends, right? Thunderstorm says, yeah, why? Popeye says, then let me help you. Thunderstorm says, back off. Before you're in the ER too. Popeye says, you've become so bitter. Stop holding it in, man. Let it out. Thunderstorm says, you want me to let it out? Fine. The ground starts to shake. The storm roars. His eyes glow red and his armor appears. He flies into the sky and screams. And Ty Celestia says, He's gonna sink Equestria. It just keeps up. Ally says, Let him. It's not just screaming. It's saying goodbye. Thunderstorm screams. Tears fall from Thunderstorm's eyes. He lands and says, Mother. And Celestia wraps a wing around him and says, We're here. You're not alone. Thunderstorm says, Thank you. I just hate the pain. It's so much easier to run. And Celestia says, Don't. It will destroy you. Thunderstorm says, I know, but it's hard. Rainbow Dash says, That's why we're here, to stand by you. Rainbow Dash kisses Thunderstorm and says, Do you feel better? Thunderstorm says, Yeah. Let's move. We got a home to find. And Rainbow Dash smiles and says, He's back. And Celestia says, Thank Darkstar. Twilight says, Huh? And Celestia says, It's what that ponies say. Twilight says, Oh. Thunderstorm says, Y'all coming? Every pony says, Yep. End of chapter 6. The Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 7, Back from the Ashes. Celestia says, So how is Thunderstorm? Rainbow Dash says, Huh? Celestia says, How is he as a husband? Rainbow Dash says, Oh, amazing. He cares for me so much. He just steals my heart away. And Celestia smiles and says, And he's with Skulu also. And Rainbow Dash says, Yes. Besides Applebeam and Sweetie Belle, she's been alone all her life. She needs a pony like Thunderstorm. We both do. We both love him. And Celestia says, But he's only married to you. And Rainbow Dash says, He hasn't said anything about marrying Scootaloo. And Celestia says, Exactly. And I know why. I saw how he looks at you. He cares about you more. So much more. Rainbow Dash says, Really? And Celestia says, You had no idea. You look at him the same way. And Rainbow Dash smiles and looks at Thunderstorm. Twilight says, I wonder if Draconix is alive. Thunderstorm freezes and says, Draconix! He has Phoenix in his DNA. He's probably ashes, but still alive. I'll be back with my cousin. Twilight says, Okay. Thunderstorm says, At Sonic next Starboom speed, I'll be there in no time. Thunderstorm says, Wahoo! I love flying! At Ponyville's ruins. Thunderstorm says, I never wanted to come back here, but I don't want to leave Cuz here either. Whoa! Thunderstorm trips and says, Ow, stupid urn. Wait. There's 3. And they're diamond shaped. It could be him. But where can I put his ashes together? I guess in his house. Well, what's left of it? Anyway, alright. 1, 2, and 3. Pow. Thunderstorm says, Whoa! One big bright flash of fire and Draconix is back. Draconix says, What happened? Thunderstorm says, Follow me outside, cuz. Draconix says, Oh, Celestia. Thunderstorm says, This is what happened. Tears appear in Thunderstorm's eyes, and he says, "They're dead. My mother, and yours." Draconet says, "Celestia, Luna, no, I can bring them back." Thunderstorm says, "No, you can't. They've been dead too long, and your power's not strong enough. Even mine isn't strong enough. They're gone. Forever." Draconet says, "No, me and Mother were just getting to know each other. How did this happen?" Thunderstorm says, "An android called Project 7, built by a hunter, but he didn't mean for it to be evil." Tears appear in Draconet's eyes, and he says, "I can't bring her back." Thunderstorm says, "No, you can't." Draconet says, "I will. You'll see." Thunderstorm says, "It's too late. Stop." Draconet reaches the fallen castle. Draconet says, "It's fallen. Mother!" Draconet starts digging. Thunderstorm lands behind Draconet and says, "Stop! You know it's too late." Draconet says, "It's not." Thunderstorm says, "I tried to run away from the truth, and it nearly killed me. Stop running." Draconet looks at Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm looks Draconet in both eyes and says, "They're gone. It's too late. I'm sorry, but it's true." Tears fall from Draconet's eyes, and he says, "No." Thunderstorm says, "If you want to scream, go ahead. I did." Draconet starts crying and says, "I don't want to scream. I want her back." Thunderstorm wraps a wing around Draconet and says, "Let it out. I'm here, cuz. I know what you're going through. I feel the same thing. You're not alone." End of chapter 7. The Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 8, Repopulation. 1 hour later, Thunderstorm says, "You okay now, cuz?" Draconet says, "Yeah." Thunderstorm says, "We need to head back to the others." Draconet says, "Others?" Thunderstorm says, "The other survivors. Twilight, Applejack, Rarity, Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, etc." Draconet says, "Oh, let's go." Octavia says, "Oh, please wait." Thunderstorm says, "Octavia, you're alive. What about Vinyl?" Vinyl says, "Right here. No android gonna kill this DJ." Thunderstorm hugs them both and says, Thanks, Celestia, you're alive." Octavia says, "Oh." Vinyl says, Didn't know you cared so much." Thunderstorm says, "Of course I do. You two are amazing ponies and friends. Let's get you two out of this graveyard. What have y'all been doing, anyway?" Octavia blushes. Vinyl says, looking for you." Thunderstorm says, "Right. Let's just go." Octavia says, "Right." Thunderstorm says, "Draconics." Draconet says, "Yeah." Thunderstorm says, It'll take forever on Earth to get back, so you carry Octavia, and I'll carry Vinyl." Draconet says, "Alright." Octavia says, I'm gonna fly?" Vinyl says, "Sweet." Thunderstorm says, "Hop on." Draconet says, "Octavia?" Octavia says, "Coming." Thunderstorm says, "Ready." Draconet says, "Yep." Thunderstorm says, "Let's fly." Vinyl says, "Wahoo!" Draconet says, show off. Althea says, oh my goodness. Woohoo! Thunderstorm says, having fun? Mousecrat says, oh yeah. This is awesome. Thunderstorm says, want to experience what it's like to fly at Sonic's stubborn speed? Mousecrat says, oh yeah. Thunderstorm says, hang on. Mousecrat says, wow! This is so cool! Draconet says, how did he really just, that should be impossible. Althea says, whoa. Draconet says, now he's really showing off. Thunderstorm says, you still there? Mousecrat says, yep. This is amazing. Thunderstorm says, we're past the speed of a sonic rainbow, by the way. Mousecrat says, that's impossible. Thunderstorm says, it was. Pink Pie says, whoa. Twilight says, what's that? Ray says, it's beautiful. And Red Ash says, a sonic star boom. Thunderstorm must have done one to get back faster. Twilight says, sonic star boom? And Red Ash says, it's what happens when Thunderstorm goes past the speed of a sonic rainbow. Twilight says, what? That's impossible. Red Ash smiles and says, not with him. Applejack says, here they come. Thunderstorm says, we're here. He lands. Red Ash says, Final! You're alive! Mousecrat says, yep. Twilight says, where's Draconix? Thunderstorm says, oh, he's coming. 1 hour later, Draconix lands. Althea says, I love flying. Zara says, Octavia, you're alive. Zara hugs Octavia. Octavia says, yep. Draconix says, I won't answer. Thunderstorm, how can you fly that fast? Thunderstorm says, I was born fast. The sonic turboom was an old dark ponytail. Now it's not. Draconix says, okay, we have another problem besides finding another home. We need to repopulate. Which mayors haven't had a baby yet? Twilight says, he's talking like he's in charge. Thunderstorm says, let him think it for now. I'll break it to him later. Twilight says, okay. Draconix says, Skokura, you ain't had a baby yet. Soren says, we saw it for a little bit, then the android came. Draconix says, oh, well, please start trying again. We need to get our population up. Skokura says, sounds good to me. Soren says, me too. Draconix says, anyway, Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm says, yeah, cuz? Draconix says, how do you and the other families feel about having another baby? Thunderstorm says, we had to ask our wives. Rainbow Dash? Rainbow Dash says, have another baby. I'd love to. Cyber says, Fluttershy? Fluttershy says, Uncle is amazing. I'd love to have another. The D says, Twilight? Twilight says, another solar. I'd love to. Dave says, Shirley? Shirley says, get your a brother or sister. I'd love to. Draconix says, it's settled then. Repopulation is underway. Scooby says, what about me? A mysterious voice says, I got you covered. Thunderstorm says, huh? His eyes glare red, and he says, Dark Pony. End of Chapter 8. The Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 9, New Love. Dark Pony says, Hello, Thunderstorm. Good to see you, my king. Thunderstorm says, Why are you here, Blaze? Blaze says, I saw these people mayor and felt something I never have before. What's your name? Scootaloo giggles and says, My name is Scootaloo. Blaze says, What a beautiful name. And mine is Blaze. I'm a DJ. My friend says, Sweet. Another DJ. Blaze says, I know we just met, but I think I love you. I wouldn't mind having a baby with you. Scootaloo blushes and says, Oh. Thunderstorm's armor appears and the storm roars. Thunderstorm gets in front of Scootaloo and says, If you think I'm going to let a dark pony mate with her, you're a bigger fool than Darkstar. Blaze says, Please, I honestly think I love her. I've never ever felt this way before in my life. Scootaloo says, The dark pony's secret. Thunderstorm says, Let him kiss you, my little girl. I'd sooner kill JT. JT says, What? Twilight says, What? Solar says, What? Scootaloo says, How are you going to stop me? Thunderstorm takes an aggressive step towards Scootaloo and says, Don't test me, girl. Scootaloo says, Dad? Thunderstorm says, I'm sorry, but our ponies are nothing but trouble except anti-Celestia. Blaze says, I'm not. I promise. Please. Blaze bows and says, Please, my king. Thunderstorm says, I ain't been your king for 14 years. Blaze says, Some of us are still loyal, sir. Thunderstorm says, Get up, fool. Fine. If you really want to, Scootaloo, kiss him. Scootaloo says, Thanks, Dad. Thunderstorm says, Whatever. Blaze says, I don't know, actually. What if it doesn't work? I mean, Magic sweeps over Blaze. Nah. Scootaloo says, You worry too much. Blaze says, I knew I loved you. Scootaloo smiles and says, I love you too. I do. And I just met you. Thunderstorm gets in Blaze's face and looks him in both eyes and says, Listen, boy, if you ever hurt her in any way, I'll tie you up and lock your family in their own house and set it on fire. After you watch them slowly die, I'll kill you even slower. Got that, boy? Blaze says, Yes, sir. Thunderstorm smiles and says, Good boy. Solar says, Your dad is scary. Rain says, Yeah. Awesome, right? Trail says, Yep. Aqua says, That was cool. Rain says, Definitely didn't get your mother's shyness, huh, Aqua? Aqua says, Nope, I'm brave like Daddy. Zapper says, Got that right. Scootaloo says, Don't worry. He's just trying to protect me. He won't do it. Blaze says, You didn't see his eyes. He meant it. Red Eye says, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do what Thunderstorm said, but I'll make you pay also if you hurt her. Blaze says, I wouldn't dream of it. She's amazing. Scootaloo kisses Blaze and says, So are you. Thunderstorm says, come on, our home ain't gonna find itself. Blaze says, we can get to know each other as we walk. Scooter says, just what I was thinking. Popeye says, Applejack? Applejack says, what's up, partner? Popeye says, I'd like to be your partner. I love you, Applejack. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since I came to Equestria. We've talked and hanged out. I just kept falling more and more for you. Applejack says, I love you too. Popeye says, I know this is soon, but we need to repopulate. Want to have a baby with me? Applejack blushes and says, oh. Popeye says, I love you and I'm ready, but are you? Applejack says, I am. I'd love to have one with you. Popeye smiles and says, praise Celestia, I met you. Popeye and Applejack kiss. Ray says, someday make a cute couple. Celestia says, sure do. Brady says, love is beautiful. Celestia says, not as beautiful as you. Brady blushes and says, oh, thank you. You're not so bad yourself. So Celestia kisses Rarity. Rarity blushes, blood red. Celestia puts his horn against Rarity's. They glow red. Celestia says, red, the color of love. You do feel the same. Rarity says, oh my, I'm gonna faint. Celestia says, I'll catch you. Every time. Rarity says, stop it. So Celestia pulls her in close and says, I love you. I have since I saw you. Rarity says, I love you too. Celestia takes Rarity behind a tree. Twilight says, we better stop walking. They'll be left behind. Thunderstorm says, alright, now love is slowing us down. We just can't win lately. Everdash says, it's just us again. No Screw. I think we won. Thunderstorm smiles and says, I say so. Thunderstorm and Everdash kiss. End of chapter 9. By the way, Draconics is one of my friend's characters, not one that I made up. So, I don't have a picture of him. But once I finish reading the books, I can make a slideshow of all the characters that I do have. Just to show y'all what they look like I've watched y'all on Firefly. Alright, Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 10, Last Wishes. Thunderstorm says, Rainbow Dash, I'm sorry, I got with Scootaloo. You're my one and only. Rainbow Dash smiles and says, I think you're one and only. Thunderstorm smiles and says, every time I look at you, you steal my heart away like that day we were in the tree and that storm came. My heart truly belongs to you. I just didn't want Scootaloo to be alone. Rainbow Dash kisses Thunderstorm and says, I know. Thunderstorm and Rainbow Dash look into each other's eyes. They kiss again. Blaze says, looks like Mr. Dark King has a soft side. Scootaloo says, yeah, so do you. Blaze says, only for you. Scootaloo says, that's what I meant. Blaze says, I know. Wow, you're beautiful. Scootaloo smiles and says, you're looking at me the same way my dad was at my mom. Blaze says, you're looking at me that way too. Blaze and Scootaloo kiss. Thunderstorm says, tree. Rainbow Dash says, oh, let's go. Blaze says, Scootaloo says, I'd love to. Blaze says, really? Because if you're not ready. Skidoo looks at Blaze seductively. Blaze says, you're ready. Tree? Skidoo says, let's get started. Draconic says, population's gonna shoot up, ain't it? Twilight says, yep. Every pony else goes behind trees with the one they love, except the fillies. Apploon, Sweetbell, and Draconics, and Celestia. Apploon says, where's Final Scratch? Sweetbell says, and Octavia. Draconic says, they're behind one of these trees. Apploon says, oh, so there. Draconic says, yup. Sweetbell says, I always wonder why they live together. Apploon says, how long is this going to take? Draconic says, that's up to them. I'm going to put my ears to poke out all this morning. Apploon says, count us in. And Celestia looks up into the night sky and says, don't worry. I'll take care of him, my equestrian sister. Thank you for bringing me to him. He's like you and his father. Tears fall from Celestia's eyes, and she says, I wish you were still alive. He misses you. I miss you. Rain says, you knew Grandma? And Celestia says, we were friends when she was with Darkstar. She's a pony that helped me become good. A better pony. Rain says, I miss Grandma. Tears appear in Rain's eyes. The wind picks up, and Celestia says, odd. Princess Luna's spirit says, I miss you both. Also. Celestia says, sister. Rain says, Grandma? Princess Luna's spirit says, thank you for saving my son from himself. And Celestia says, happy to. Rain hugs Princess Luna's spirit's leg. Princess Luna's spirit nuzzles her and says, Rain, I miss you so much. Rain says, Grandma, I miss you too. Princess Luna's spirit says, look after your dad, dark sister. And Celestia says, yes, Luna? Princess Luna's spirit starts to slowly disappear. And she says, keep him alive. Rain says, Grandma! And Celestia says, I will. I promise. Princess Luna's spirit says, thank you. Rain says, Grandma, come back, please. Rain starts to cry and says, Grandma! And Celestia says, I won't let you down, sister. Aqua, Cheryl, and Solar have tears in their eyes. Aqua says, poor Rain. Cheryl says, and Celestia. Solar says, she came back, and now she's gone again. All three start to cry. Draconic says, what's wrong? The wind picks up. Princess Celestia's spirit says, my son. Draconic turns around and says, Mother. Princess Celestia's spirit says, I was wrong. Thunderstorm is more than good. Look after him, and he'll look after you. You'll become like brothers. Draconic says, I will. Tears appear in Draconic's eyes, and he says, I miss you. Princess Celestia's spirit says, I miss you too, but I'm always looking after you. She starts to slowly disappear. Draconic says, Mother! The Princess Celestia's spirit nuzzles him and says, I love you, my son. Draconic says, I love you too. Mother. Draconic falls to his knees crying. A wing wraps around him. Draconic says, huh? Thunderstorm? Thunderstorm says, I told you, you're not alone. Draconic smiles and says, thanks, man. He continues to cry. Thunderstorm says, No problem, cuz. End of chapter 10. Woo-wee! 3 is a lot longer than book 1 and 2, that's for sure. There's 2-page chapters instead of 1 page or half of 1 page. And it gets even longer as the books go on. Well, I guess we'll read 2 more chapters. After that, I think that'll be good enough for this video. Oh man. The Brony Adventures 3, Chapter 11, The Fallen Empire. Dinosaur says, "You okay?" Dracona says, "Yeah." Dinosaur says, "Well, it looks like they're probably finished, mating." And Weird Ass says, "Yep." Dinosaur says, "Let's move." 1 hour later, Weird Ass says, "Is it me, or is it getting colder?" Dinosaur says, "It is colder. Way colder. We're near the Crystal Empire." Reddy says, Where's the snow?" Dinosaur says, "Under all the ash." Reddy says, "Why are we heading to the Crystal Empire?" Dinosaur says, "Me and Twilight need to go there." Reddy says, "Why?" Twilight says, "To know Shining Armor and Princess Cadance are still alive." Reddy says, "Oh, of course. I'm sorry, Twilight." Twilight says, "It's okay." Silver says, "That's the reason for Twilight, but why are you going?" Dinosaur says, "Shining Armor and Cadance are Twilight's family, and Twilight is my friend. I'm going to stick by her." Silver says, "Good pony." They all freeze. Harner says, "Dang." Dinosaur says, "Let's turn back." Twilight says, "I'm not turning back." Dinosaur says, "Look at it. It's ruins. They may not be alive. I'm not going to try to stop you, but I beg you, don't go in there, Twilight." Twilight says, "I'm going." Dinosaur says, Then I'm going." Twilight says, "We're all going. Come on." In the Crystal Empire, Skilly says, "There's so many bones." Reddy says, It's just like Equestria. Dead." Dinosaur says, "Alright, let's split up. To cover the entire your empire. Be back here when you're done. Go!" 5 hours later, Dinosaur says, "Any point find anything?" Everyone says, "No." Twilight says, "That leaves the castle." Dinosaur says, "Let's go." In the castle, Dinosaur says, Once again, split up. Go!" 3 hours later, Dinosaur says, "Anything?" Everybody says, "No." Twilight says, the Crystal Caverns." Dinosaur says, "On it." His horn starts to glow. A portal opens on the floor. Dinosaur says, "Let's go." In the Crystal Caverns, Twilight screams, "Shining Armor!" Dinosaur screams, "Princess Cadance! Please be here. Alive." Shining Armor's voice screams, "Twilight!" Princess Cadance's voice screams, "Prince Thunderstorm! Twilight!" Twilight screams, "Shining Armor!" Twilight runs towards his voice. Dinosaur screams, "Princess Cadance!" He follows Twilight. Shining Armor says, "Twilight." Shining Armor hosts Twilight. Princess Cadance says, "Prince Thunderstorm." Dinosaur says, "Princess Cadance." He hugs Cadance and says, "I'm so glad you're alive." Princess Cadance says, "I'm glad to see you too." Twilight says, Are you crying?" Shining Armor says, "It's liquid pride for you surviving through this. It's different." Twilight smiles. Princess Cadance says, Twilight says, Cadence. They hug. Shining Armor says, "How do you and Cadence know each other?" Thunderstorm smiles and says, We've been friends forever." Shining Armor says, "Oh, cool." Thunderstorm says, We're looking for a new home. Let's get y'all out of here." Shining Armor says, "Yeah, outside of the Crystal Empire." Just as Cadence says, "You built that thing that did all this?" Armor says, "I can't tell you how sorry I am. This was never supposed to happen." Tears appear in Princess Cadence's eyes, and she says, "Because of you, so many ponies are dead. Even Princess Celestia and Princess Luna are dead." Shining Armor says, "We still have Twilight and her friends, plus the other survivors that are with her. We're not alone." This Cadence says, "So many still died." Thunderstorm says, but we're still alive to tell their stories, to make sure they live on. We survived for a reason. We were destined to." This Cadence smiles and says, "You're right. Thank you, Thunderstorm." Thunderstorm says, "No problem. Let's move. Our new home is waiting." Shining Armor says, "He's a good pony." Princess Cadence says, "Always has been." End of chapter 11. The Brony Adventures 3, chapter 12, Home. 6 weeks later, Thunderstorm says, You made any strange, Rainbow Dash?" Rainbow Dash says, I think I'm pregnant again." Thunderstorm says, "What? How?" Rainbow Dash says, "Oh, I don't know, Mr. Tree." Thunderstorm says, Good point. We need a doctor to be sure." Thunderstorm says, "Look, I built this. A pregnancy scanner out of some sticks and mud." Thunderstorm says, "Really? Just really?" Thunderstorm says, "What? It really works. It beats when you put it in front of a mare that's pregnant." Beep. Thunderstorm says, "Huh?" Zara says, It was pointed at me." Thunderstorm says, "You're pregnant?" Zara says, "I guess so." Thunderstorm says, I'm gonna be a dad? This is the best moment of my life." Thunderstorm says, "I'm very happy for you, but could you please scan Dashy?" Thunderstorm says, "Oh, right." Beep. Thunderstorm says, "Yep, you're pregnant." And where Dash says, "I'm pregnant. Again." Thunderstorm smiles and says, "Another gift for us to raise together. I'm sorry I panicked. Thank you for giving me another gift." And Dash smiles and says, We both made it." Thunderstorm says, "And we'll both love it." Brady says, "Grass! Green grass!" Beanbot says, "Grass? What's so great about grass?" Thunderstorm says, "Grass? No ashes? Green grass? Ha ha! We're home!" Thunder says, "Brady 7 was out of this place alone because no pony lives here." Rabbi says, We do now." Someone says, "I found a river." Skugger says, "That's my story." Someone says, "Not in front of the guys." Skugger giggles and says, "Sorry." Skugger says, Hunter?" Hunter says, "Yeah." Skugger says, "Could you scan me with that thing?" Hunter says, "Sure." Beep. Hunter says, "Congratulations." Skugger smiles and flies to Soren and says, "I'm pregnant." Soren says, "Really?" Skugger nods her head. Soren screams, "Wahoo! I'm gonna be a dad, and you're gonna be a mother." Skugger says, "I'm scared and and excited at the same time. Soren says, "So am I, but we're ready. We found our new home, and you'll be a great mother." Squidward smiles and says, "You'll be a great dad." Thunderstorm flies up to them and says, "Finally pregnant, huh?" Squidward says, "Yep." Thunderstorm says, "Congratulations, sis." Soren. Squidward says, "Thank you, brother." Soren says, "Thanks, man." Thunderstorm says, "Y'all gonna get married?" Soren says, "We don't have anywhere to get married in." Thunderstorm smiles and says, That can be changed." Thunderstorm turns around to face everybody else and says, Let's get to work. We got a town to build." Schoolie says, "Our new life begins." Buddy says, You've been acting strange, like your mother. Are you?" Schoolie blushes. Buddy says, "Oh, Darkstar, I'm gonna be a dad." Schoolie says, I'm gonna be a mother." Beep. Arna says, "Yep." Zara says, "Give me that stupid thing. Now go build one out of normal stuff." Arna says, "I got no tools." Thunderstorm says, "I can fix that, but first, sign this contract. It states that you will never build robots, androids, or cyborgs ever again." Arna says, "I ain't built any cyborgs." Thunderstorm says, "Just sign it." Arna says, "Okay, done." Thunderstorm says, "Thank you. Tools coming up." Thunderstorm's horn starts to blow. It shoots the ground, and one big flash, tools have appeared. Hunter says, "I'll get to work. By the way, every mare that has a lover is pregnant. Population is definitely going up." Well, off to work." Thunderstorm says, "That many babies? We're gonna need help." Rainbow Dash says, We'll be fine." Rain says, Yeah, Daddy, just fine." Thunderstorm smiles and says, "Thanks, Angel." Rain says, No problem, Daddy." 8 months later, Popeye says, "It's finally built, our town. Ain't it beautiful?" Thunderstorm says, "Sure is." "How's Applejack?" Popeye says, "Fine." Thunderstorm says, Just one more month." Popeye says, "I know. Ain't it great?" Thunderstorm says, "It's amazing." Rain's been excited since we told her. Popeye says, "Applejack wishes Big Macintosh was here to see his niece." Thunderstorm looks at the ground and says, I know how she feels. I wish Mother and Aunt Sophia were here to see them." Everybody smiles and says, "They're watching. Everybody we love is watching. They'll see, and they'll watch over." Thunderstorm smiles and says, "Yeah, they'll see." Luna says, "Indeed I will, my son." Thunderstorm says, Mother, you're alive." End of chapter 12. Ooh, this is the chapter where, you know what? On Sunday, I'm going to keep reading. The Brony Adventures 3, chapter 13. Thunder snaps. Raphael was in shock at Luna. Luna says, "I'm sorry, my son, but I'm not alive. I just came to see you and tell you something." Thunderstorm says, "Mother, please come back." Luna smiles and says, "You've led them well. This is your kingdom now." Tears fall from Thunderstorm's eyes, and he says, "Please." Luna says, "It's your time to rule. Mine is over." Thunderstorm drops to his knees and says, No, please, come back. Luna says, "You're honorable and and loyal pony, my son. You have a kind heart that cares about another pony you just met in a second, and much more. You'll be a great prince. I'm sorry, Thunderstorm. It's impossible for me to come back. Thunderstorm jumps up and screams, "No!" The storm roars, "Oh, no, no, no!" Popeye says, "I've never seen him in so much pain." Draconet says, "I could feel it. I've never felt so much pain." "Oh!" Then it hugs. Thunderstorm says, "Stop hurrying. I'm always here. I'm always with you." Thunderstorm says, "Mother." Then it says, "I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you." Thunderstorm says, "Mother, Mother, come back." Why says, "Thunderstorm?" Thunderstorm screams, "Ah!" The storm roars. Stewie says, "Dad." Why says, "My king." Thunderstorm's armor appears, and he screams, "Ah!" And Tyson says, "Thunderstorm." "Ah!" Rash says, He needs us." Rain says, "Daddy." And Redash says, "Come on." The wind howls like cries from hell. Popeye says, "Hang on, man! Don't leave us!" Thunderstorm screams, "Ah!" The storm roars. Tornadoes start to form. Redash screams, "Thunderstorm!" Draconet screams, "You will destroy everything! Every pony too!" Rain screams, "I can't hang on!" A tornado comes down behind them. Rain screams, "Ah!" Redash screams, "Rain!" Thunderstorm screams, "Ah! Rain!" Thunderstorm flies into the tornado, and Redash says, "Please come back." Draconet says, "Rain." Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm screams, "Ah!" The tornado diminishes, and Redash screams, "Thunderstorm, rain!" Rain says, "Thanks, Dad." Thunderstorm says, "Ah, don't thank me. I caused it." Rain says, "And you stopped it." The storm has stopped. Rain says, "You saved me too. You're my hero, Daddy." She hugs Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm smiles and says, "Thanks, Angel." Dash says, Thanks, Cecilia, you're both alive." Draconet says, "How did you get rid of the tornado?" Thunderstorm says, "I am her dad. No tornado is taking my daughter." Draconet says, "Of course." Thunderstorm gives rein to Dash, then lands, and says, "Octavia, final. If you want, I can use my magic to make one of you pregnant with the other's baby. It will be like y'all actually made it. Have both your genetics and everything." Miles Scratch says, "Awesome." Octavia says, "I'll carry it." Thunderstorm says, "Okay then." He lowers his head, aiming his horn at Octavia. He closes his eyes and focuses. His horn starts to glow. It shoots magic at Octavia. In one big bright flash, it's done. Thunderstorm opens his eyes and raises his head and says, "Done." Beep! Anna says, "Yep, pregnant." Octavia blushes and says, "I'm carrying Vinyl's baby." Scratch says, "Octavia's pregnant? With my baby? Awesome! We're mothers!" Octavia says, "I'm a mother." Octavia smiles. Thunderstorm says, "You're welcome. See you later, you two." Octavia says, "Wait." We should thank you somehow. Dinosaur says, I didn't do it for thanks. I did it so you two could have your own gift to raise. Muskrat says, you got a kind heart. Dinosaur says, I get it from my mother. End of chapter 13. Well, I think that's enough for today. So, thank you for coming back. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.